Good morning. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm Ricardo Fernandez, president of Lehman College, and it is my sincere honor to welcome you here this morning and also to welcome our governor, Andrew Cuomo, to our campus. Yeah. I would also like to acknowledge some of our esteemed guests who are here with us today. Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., New York State Senator Jeffrey Klein, Senator Gustavo Rivera, and Assemblyman Jeffrey Denowitz, Jose Rivera, Mark Yonai, Michael Benedetto, today, the governor will talk about the progress the state has made under his leadership and ways in which we can continue to improve our economy. It is only fitting that the governor chose to visit Lehman College to talk about this plan. Education, as you well know, helps an economy to grow, and the City University of New York, led by Lehman College and CUNY's two community colleges in the borough, play a major role in the economic life of the Bronx. Lehman College has a long and distinguished history of uplifting the community that we call home. This is why the City University, with the support of New York State, invested $70 million in our new state-of-the-art science hall with its cutting-edge research and learning facilities. This magnificent new building, which officially opened last month, serves not only as a home for the world-class research of our scholar scientists, but also as an incubator for the training of scientists for tomorrow. And each scientist and scholar we train means eventually jobs for the Bronx, for New York City, and New York State. Science Hall also serves as the home for our many science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM initiatives. And these initiatives will serve as a pipeline for the K-12 students, opening doors and shattering barriers for our local students into these fields. In fact, this coming Friday, February 22nd, with the support of the Intel Corporation, one of these initiatives will be taking place. The Bronx Sci-Fest, the very first science-based fair of its kind. The Bronx Science Fair will feature nearly 40 high school science students from 6 Bronx public high schools, giving them a chance to compete for scholarships, prize money, and participation in the New York City Science Fair. Not only does Lehman College provide an affordable and quality education for students, we also help prepare them for the workforce after graduation. Here at Lehman, we're cultivating an atmosphere that facilitates and supports faculty, staff, and students in the pursuit of innovative research and creative exploration. Our faculty and students and staff are committed to enhancing excellence in teaching, research, and learning that promotes community service and engagement throughout the Bronx and beyond. In addition, we offer a business and liberal arts concentration that lets students focus their studies on a liberal arts education while developing the necessary skills and entrepreneurial knowledge and business to succeed in a range of careers. Governor Cuomo recognizes these public-private partnerships as critical to the success in a 21st century economy. In a global, knowledge-based economy, he is making smart investments and leveraging the intellectual and human resources of academia to attract businesses to New York and create jobs. It is a mission and a responsibility that we here at Lehman take very seriously. I am now pleased to introduce a strong leader in our community who has led this borough and county to new heights over the past 4 years. He's a loyal friend of the City University of New York and of Lehman College. He's also a proud alumnus of Lehman College. Borough President Ruben Diaz, Jr.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you, President Fernandez. Let's give the President a strong round of applause for all the wonderful work that is happening here. Before I go to my remarks, I also want to acknowledge two public servants that are with us here this morning. One is an individual who has made us proud and has been a leader at the New York City Council, ensuring that the council and City Hall is responsible to the needs of the borough of the Bronx, and that's none other than my good friend, Majority Leader Joel Rivera. Yesterday, for many of you, you were there at the State of the Borough address, and I spoke of a new Bronx. I spoke of how we have been building upon our successes. I spoke about how we are standing on the shoulders of generations before us. Many of you have put in the hard work, but there's one individual here who I believe was the person who started the renaissance of the borough, the person who laid the foundation so that we can move forward in the way that we have been. He is a former borough president. He is the chairman of the MTA. His name is Fernando Ferrer, and I call him 11. Fernando, would you please stand up? Ladies and gentlemen, wonderful things are happening in our borough if you look all around you. And the reality is that so many of us, we read a lot about what happens in Albany or what doesn't happen in Albany. And quite often we read the papers and they say that there's dysfunction up in Albany and that now things are getting better. And they are getting better under the leadership of Governor Cuomo. But the reality is this, that even in the days where Albany was deemed as functioning, the Bronx was always left out. The reason why I love this governor so much, and he's not always easy. He's a tough governor, but he listens. The reason why I love him so much and the reason why it's so important that we have him here today is because while he's been doing a lot of work for so many different regions of the state of New York, this governor has also been considerate and has been there for the borough of the Bronx. And I say that, and let me just rattle off a couple of things. You look at Fresh Direct in Long Island City, 2,200 jobs, they wanted to leave the state of New York. We spoke with the governor and his folks. We put a financial package and made sure that we retained those jobs, not only in New York City, but they're coming to the Bronx. When you look at companies from other states like Missouri, Smith Electric, which they manufacture zero-emission, all-electric trucks, we were able to talk with the governor, and they were able to come and move their entire outfit from Missouri right to the borough of the Bronx, creating already over 100 jobs, and the average salary is $40,000. When you speak of mass transit and transportation, we continue to talk with him and this administration about providing Metro North stations to the eastern corridor of the borough to make sure that we transform the way the Bronx is and the way we do business. The Hunts Point Produce Market needs a new facility. The governor has stepped up to the plate. When he developed the Economic Development Regional Councils, there's 10 statewide. The one in New York City, in their first go-around of allotments, the Bronx got the lion's share of that money for businesses, 17 businesses right here in the Bronx, the lion's share of New York City. That's what the governor has done for us. Simply put, the Bronx is at the table, baby. And so, also, when you look at him, he does this all in mind with justice and equity for all, equality for all. Look at what he's done in this administration for marriage equality. Look at what the governor talks about when he says that women still are treated in an inequitable way in the workforce. When you speak of stop and frisk, the reality is that while I support stop, question, and frisk, and it could be used as a good tool to fight crime, it's just not. And over the last 10 years, what we've been seeing is that 500 to 600,000 men and women, particularly in the Black and Latino communities, have had their civil rights violated. The governor is addressing that. Yeah, that deserves a strong round of applause. And so I'm here today because it's a great day to be at Lehman College, where I graduated, where I learned economic development lessons, not just from my professors, but from trying to choose whether I have to buy books or put food on the table for my kids, where I learned lessons on different races and religions, not necessarily from my professors, but from the diverse student body that I sat with in these classes. It is good to have the governor here. It is good to see what's happening here with the science building and in the STEM fields. It is good to see all of my colleagues in government working in tandem. One of those individuals who has been working with all of us, because good politics translates into good policy. Collectively, we're doing good politics. Collectively, we're making sure that the policy is not just working for the entire city of New York, the entire state of New York, but also aimed at making sure that the Bronx is prospering. One individual who's up there working with the governor is my good friend, my ally, State Assemblyman Jeff Dinowitz.
Thank you, Borough President. I don't know how many of you were at the State of the Borough address yesterday, but the Borough President was terrific. He laid out an incredible vision for the future of the Bronx, and if he does as well in the next 4 or 8 years as he's done in the past 4, the Bronx will be in good hands. The Bronx will continue to prosper. It is so wonderful to be here at Lehman College, and on behalf of the people in the 81st Assembly District, I want to extend our warm welcome to the governor, and I'm thrilled that you're here today. I'm a graduate of Lehman College. I don't want to say when I graduated. I got a great education here. But when I graduated, this building did not exist. The Performing Arts Center did not exist, so you do the math. A lot has happened here in recent years. So much building has gone on. There's so much good education taking place. The opening of the science building just recently is just an example of all the great things that are happening at Lehman College. And that happens with the support of elected officials, the community, the people at Lehman, and of course, the governor. As a representative of this district and as chair of the Bronx Assembly delegation, I want to introduce again the members of the Assembly that are here today. We have our good friend Jose Rivera, Mike Benedetto, and I think he might have a few friends in the audience, Mark Jonai. You know, when you think of the executive budget, the budget that the governor presents to us at the beginning of the year, typically a lot of zeros and dollar signs and complicated accounting mechanisms come to mind. But few governors have used the budget the way this governor has to advance a bold and progressive agenda for the people of New York. In the past 2 years, the governor has restored New York's reputation as the progressive capital of the entire country. He created the Youth Works program, signed into law the strongest rent control regulations in 40 years, and passed marriage equality. This year, he is poised to carry on New York's tradition as a progressive leader, because what happens in New York doesn't just happen in a vacuum. People look to our state, especially over the last 2 years, to see what direction we are going in. And what's happening around the country when they look at New York and they envy us at this point, it's in large part due to Governor Cuomo, and we are all very proud of him. This year, he also laid out a very bold and progressive agenda, and he talked about women's equality. He addressed the issue of gun violence, economic development, and other issues that are so important to the people of New York. And I look forward to working with him as we have for the past 2 years, because I know that as great as he's performed in the past 2 years, the best is yet to come for this state. Thanks to Governor Cuomo. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, my partner in state government, and your senator, the Majority Coalition leader, Jeff Klein.
Thank you very, very much. It's truly a pleasure to be here, and I want to give a shout-out, even though he was introduced, to one of our outstanding state senators in the Bronx, fights for us each and every day, Senator Gustavo Rivera, everyone. Well, I wasn't lucky enough to graduate from Lehman High School, but when I come to Lehman College, it really is coming home, because back in 1995, right in this auditorium, I was sworn in as a New York State Assembly member. And that always means a lot to me, because I think the greatest gift that our constituents can give us to allow us to go up to our state capitol, to espouse the hopes and aspirations of you each and every day. And that really leads me to really my love of public service and what it's all about. The ability to get up every morning and make a positive difference in people's lives. But I'd be less than honest, that sort of changed before Governor Cuomo came to office. We sort of lost our way in Albany, really beholden in many cases to the special interests, and weren't really doing what we needed to do for the people that we represent. And I think Governor Cuomo changed all that. He ended the dysfunction. He set us on the right track. He taught us each and every day that we're there to represent the people of the state of New York. And I think what Governor Cuomo brought back is something that's important. He brought back the ability for us to be proud again, to be state elected officials, and I think he deserves a tremendous hand for that. I think each and every day Governor Cuomo has proved time and time again that you can govern and have a head and a heart at the same time. I think one of the first outstanding achievements that I was part of this year as the sponsor of the New York SAFE Act, our gun control bill, was really historical. What we did was pass the strongest and toughest gun control law in the nation. Governor Cuomo took on the gun lobby because he knew a very simple truth. If we pass comprehensive gun control laws in New York State, we would save lives. Because it's very simple. If we get assault weapons off our streets in the Bronx, we're going to save lives. If we get high-capacity magazines out of the hands of criminals, we're going to save lives. If we get guns out of the hands of the mentally ill, we're going to save lives, and that's all because of our governor, Governor Cuomo. I think one of the other things that we need to do in this legislative session, and it's certainly important to Bronxites, is increase the minimum wage. I think it's outrageous that here in the Bronx, there's still individuals who work 8-hour days, and their hourly wage is pennies more than a fancy cup of coffee at Starbucks. Is that right? Well, I think one of the things we need to do is sort of take on this debate head on. And I think we have to really silence the naysayers in the business community who somehow think that if we do an increase to the minimum wage to $8.50 an hour or $8.75 an hour, as the governor proposed, we're going to hurt jobs. Well, all of the numbers that we look at is very, very simple. If you give a minimum wage worker an increase in their salary, they're going to spend it. They're going to jumpstart our local economy. They're going to buy books. They're going to buy food. They're going to buy clothes. That's how we're going to create jobs. As a matter of fact, if we increase the minimum wage in the state of New York, we will create 5,000 new jobs and pump up $600 million back into our economy, and that's what the Bronx needs. So again, I want to thank our governor because we have another budget process that's upon us again. And once again, he's making it look easy. We have a $1.2 billion budget deficit. It's going to be eliminated. We're not going to raise taxes. We're not going to increase fees. We're not going to borrow like we did in the past, because I think the governor understands a very simple truth. If you're asking New Yorkers, if you're asking Bronxites to balance their checkbooks, do more with less, state government has to do the same. So I thank the governor again for that. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce a very special young lady. She's actually one of my constituents in the great community of Woodlawn. She's a math major. She hopes to go on to medical school. She's part of the Lehman Scholars Program. It's my pleasure to introduce a very special young lady, Elisa Lannon.
Thank you, Senator Klein. Dr. Ricardo Fernandez, President of Lehman College, Honorable Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., faculty, staff, distinguished guests, and on behalf of my fellow students, welcome Governor Cuomo to Lehman College. It is an honor to have you here, and I thank you for inviting me to speak today. My name is Elisa Lannon, and I am a senior majoring in mathematics, and I hope to go to medical school after graduation. I want to be a doctor because I have always wanted to help people who were sick, and there is much joy in helping others. Specifically, I want to go into the field of neurology and spinal research. And when you're talking about the brain and the nervous system, there is a lot of math involved, which is where my major comes into use. The neurology field is exciting, and it is expanding every day, especially as innovators come up with new technologies and devices to help people who are ill. For example, new technology is allowing the field of computational and systems biology to grow, where you can make models of the nervous system on a computer and build databases to analyze everything from DNA to cells in the human body. I know this all sounds like a lot of medical jargon, but the bottom line is, new technology is helping and will help countless people who are sick. It also helps doctors and health professionals to do their jobs and ultimately improve the field of medicine, the economy, and public health. This is why Governor Cuomo's technology transfer proposal really hits home. It is all about the commercialization of good ideas and the creation of new businesses to take them to market by connecting academics, venture capitalists, business leaders, other professionals, and entrepreneurs to facilitate and grow the commercialization process and keep it in New York. His proposal to create hotspots will provide startups across the state with incubators that support growth in tax-free zones. Businesses from health clinics to engineering firms are the backbone of the economy. The governor wants entrepreneurs to create in New York, expand in New York, and stay in New York. I was born on Long Island. I go to school in the Bronx, and I want to stay in the state of New York because I know that this is a place where young people like me and businesses can grow and thrive. Governor Cuomo's plan to invest in new ideas and businesses is an investment in New York's future. He knows that too many entrepreneurs develop new business ideas and products and then leave the state and bring those ideas and products to other places, and that ultimately hurts New York. I plan on staying here because I know our governor is willing to invest in my ideas and my future and the future of New York. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the governor of the great state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning, Lehman College. Thank you very much. Boy, how about Elisa Lannon? Wasn't she great? Let's give her a round of applause. She is obviously very, very, very smart. We used to call that math smart. Computational studies, good for you. And listening to Alyssa's comments reminded me of one piece of advice I got that served me very, very well when I was just about your age. It's clear that you love what you do and you're pursuing what you love. And one time a very smart man said to me when I was looking for some advice, pursue your passion. Pursue your passion. If you are doing what you love doing, you will do it well. If you follow your heart and you go where you love and you pursue your passion, you will do well. You're pursuing your passion, you will do well. Thank you for the introduction. Another round of applause for Elisa Lannon. It's a pleasure to be back at Lehman College. You are doing great stuff. You are building, you are growing, you are nurturing the minds for tomorrow, and it's my pleasure to be here. And you have a tremendous debt of gratitude to a leader who is doing great things with this college. They talk about him all around the CUNY system. President Fernandez, pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your leadership. That was a great introduction from President Ruben Diaz, wasn't it? Except I don't give him a big round of applause. I've known the borough president many years. For me, this is partially a homecoming because we're all friends for many years and we go back for many, many years. So there's a lot of history here. I went to Fordham undergrad, so I spent a lot of time in the Bronx, and I did a lot of political work in the Bronx, so we all know each other for many, many years. Ruben Diaz and I were together in Albany first, before he left Albany to come back to the Bronx full time. And everybody knew there that he was a young superstar and he was rising and he was going to do whatever he wanted to do in his pursuit of his passion, and he is doing just that. And the Bronx is lucky to have him. We miss him in Albany, but the Bronx is lucky to have him. So another round of applause for the borough president. I don't understand what he meant when he said that I wasn't easy. I think I'm easy. I think I'm easy like Sunday morning. Whatever you want, whatever the Bronx wants, the Bronx can get. Look how easy, whatever. You heard from Senator Jeff Klein, who is the head of the Independent Democratic Conference, who is a great leader and has brought great leadership to Albany. Let's give him a round of applause. Assemblyman Jeff Dinowitz, another friend who goes back many years. He's been a stalwart of the Assembly. Let's give him a round of applause. And then you've heard in the introductions how the past 2 years in Albany have been good, and they've been better than the past. Albany had a reputation in the past as dysfunctional, that the legislature wasn't working well. In the past 2 years, it's been better. And the assemblyman and the senator were very kind, giving me credit for this new way of doing business and the turnaround in Albany. I will take the credit. Because I'm in the business where credit is important, so I will take the credit. Plus, when there is blame to be given, I get all the blame. So I'm going to take the credit because I get the blame. But it is not technically accurate. The leadership of the legislature has been extraordinary. And how this body has come together and put aside their own political needs, their own personal needs, to work together has really been extraordinary. And that's why Albany is working. And when it doesn't work, when you see gridlock and you see government that's locked in and everybody's fighting their political fight, you see this in Washington from time to time. Everyone's playing their own political battle, they're doing their own politics, but it's not working, which means it's failing the people. Because the people are the ones who get hurt when the politicians play their politics. And what we said in Albany is, you know what, we're Democrats, we're Republicans, we're from the Bronx, we're from Long Island, we're from upstate, but we're going to put aside our own politics. Because more important than Democratic Republican is we are New Yorkers first, and we're going to act as New Yorkers. And that's what they've done. And I'm going to ask them, the members of the Senate and the Assembly who are here, just to stand one more time, please. Let us give you a round of applause. Thank you very much. And one more acknowledgement, if I might. The borough president acknowledged him, but you have a great pioneer when it comes to public service and restoring the Bronx. And at one time, the Bronx had real serious problems, and people weren't even sure that you could turn it around. And it took extraordinary skill and extraordinary talent. And a man who I've looked up to all my life was Borough President of the Bronx, Fernando Ferrer, and he's here today, and let's give him a round of applause. And he's still doing public service. He's now the acting chairman of the MTA, which is a very big job. All the trains, all the buses. So if any of you have any complaint about the bus service or the train service, bus was dirty, see Fernando Ferrer. Train was a little late, see Fernando Ferrer, because he is solely responsible for whatever happens. The governor has nothing to do with it. It is all Fernando Ferrer. Let me tell you what I'd like to talk to you about today. In the beginning of the year, the chief executive gives an opening statement of the vision for that jurisdiction. So President Barack Obama gives a state of the county address, state of the country address, State of the Union they call it, which is his vision for the country. Borough President gives his vision for the borough. I give my vision for the state in what's called the State of the State address. A few weeks later, you do a budget presentation. And the budget is the nuts and bolts, the meat on the bones for that vision. But when you look at the state of the state, in my case, State of the Union in the president's case, State of the borough, that's the vision, and then the budget is the specifics on how that's going to be accomplished. These are very important presentations because these are very difficult times, and the decisions we make today matter. The decisions we make today are going to shape your future and your lives. And there's a lot of hard issues. So these are very important times, and what the politicians do is very important. So I want you to hear the plans that I'm laying out. Now, traditionally, the plans are presented to the legislative body. The president presents to the Congress, I present to the state legislature, et cetera. And we did that. But I like to keep it very simple. At the end of the day, I work for you. The relationship that's important to me is my relationship with the people of the state of New York. I asked for your trust. I asked for your vote, which is my way of asking for your trust. And that relationship is everything. And I want you to hear the plans that we're talking about. I want your feedback, your ideas, and then I want you involved in the process. You know when government works best? When you are engaged. You know when your elected representatives can do their best job? When they're hearing from you, and we know what you think and what you want and what you need. So this is my State of the State address that I presented to the legislature that I'm presenting to you today to get your ideas and your feedback. We call it New York Rising because New York is rising from some very serious issues. And over these past few months, we have had a blizzard of news stories and a blizzard of events, a lot of good news, a lot of bad news, so we have to begin by taking our bearings. As I said, we started 2 years ago in Albany, and we said the state was at a crossroads. And the state had very real problems, and if the state didn't chart a new course, that it was going to have a very troubled future. And we talked about reversing decades of decline and starting a New York comeback. And we said New York State was going to strike back against the problems that it had, and we were going to create a different future. The elements of the New York comeback was about attracting good jobs, because that's what you need. The economic development is the engine that pulls the train. What does everybody in this room need? A good career, a good job, world-class education system, which is how you get the good jobs, fiscal integrity, a government that balances its own books, and restoring New York as the progressive capital of the nation. And we'll talk about more about this. But New York isn't just another state. New York is a special state. And for many, many years, New York was the progressive capital. We came up with laws and policies that the other states all learned from. Why? Because we were the leader, New York. We were more diverse, we were more complex, we were more sophisticated, so we dealt with a lot of these issues first. And we resolved them, and then the other states followed New York. We want to get that legacy back. Over the past 2 years, I think it's fair to say that we've made progress. We're on our way. There was a great governor called Al Smith who used to say, well, let's look at the record. Let's look at the facts. Gone is the obstructionist state bureaucratic culture, which was a bureaucracy which was there to frustrate growth. We now talk about entrepreneurial government. We started that 2 years ago. People said, well, that's an oxymoron, entrepreneurial government. Can't be. They're different. They're opposites. No. You can have a government that thinks entrepreneurially and is creative and is aggressive and is lean and wants to get things done. Gone is the political gridlock, replaced with a new government that works for the people of the state. We'd like to say, well, everything is done, but unfortunately we have much, much more to do. The national economy is better, but the national economy is not great, and therefore the state economy is not great. The mantle of the progressive capital is a continuing responsibility. Pursuit of justice is an ongoing journey. You do it every day, you do it every year, you never really get there. All our children are not being educated to the fullest, and Mother Nature, on top of all, has not been kind to us. So let us begin with the plan. The 1-2 punch for New York is jobs and education. It always has been. The engine that pulls the train is economic development. We've been talking about a New York that's open for business over the past 2 years, which means we're no longer the tax capital of the nation. Why? Because New York has had a reputation as having the highest taxes in the country. And you know what that means? That means businesses and people who are now more mobile than ever before leave. Why? Because they don't want to pay the highest taxes in the country. So they go to other states, they go down south, etc. We have to change that. We have to say we're on a different course. And rule 1 is pass a budget that does not raise taxes on New Yorkers, because as Senator Klein said, you know what? People are having trouble balancing their own budget. They don't want to hear that government has a problem with the budget, and the answer for government's budget is to go to the taxpayer and say, I need more money from you to deal with my budget issues. I understand the issues you're dealing with. And I know you have your own budget that you have to deal with at the kitchen table every night. And we're going to solve the state's budget problems ourselves. And we will not ask for any additional tax increases, period. Also, the way this state starts to attract more jobs is to say to businesses, the answer is not going to be more taxes. We get it. It's a different day. And the second point is to pass that budget and pass it on time. For a lot of years, Albany wasn't able to pass a budget on time, and it became a metaphor for the dysfunction of Albany. The deadline is due is April 1 to pass the new budget, and we are committed to getting it done on time and working it out. If we get 3 consecutive budgets in a row on time, it would be the first time since 1984 the state has had 3 budgets in a row. Let's show them that we actually made government work and get 3 budgets in a row, and let's do it this year. The economic challenge that this state faces, that you're going to face going forward, is in the area of what they call tech transfer. What is tech transfer? Right now, the economy is running with new ideas that are coming out of academic institutions, usually in the high-tech field, a new computer chip, a new software application. And these great institutions of higher education are birthing the ideas, and then they become businesses. The next iPad, the next cell phone. What's happening to New York is we have the ideas, we have the great institutions, but when they become businesses, they're going to other states to become a business. They're going to California, they're going to Massachusetts, they're going to Texas. Why? It goes back to our anti-business reputation. So we have these great young minds, we're coming up with great ideas, but they then move to become a business. We have to keep those ideas and those young people here in the state of New York. And we've come up with a program called Innovation Hotspots, which is this. We're going to go all across the state and get higher education institutions to partner with private businesses And we will take those new businesses, those incubated businesses, give them a physical location to grow their business, give them the support services, the lawyers, the accountants, et cetera, that they need. We'll put them in a place where they pay no taxes whatsoever. So there's no better economic environment for that new business than New York, because they're paying no taxes at all while they're growing that business. They'll be hiring employees, and we have one condition, that that business stays in the state of New York, because we want those young people and those jobs in the state of New York. We'll invest in them, but they stay and they grow with us. Second point is a workforce that is ready for the jobs. And this is what you guys are dealing with every day. Many of our workforce training programs are from a different era. And we had these generic job training programs, one size fits all, and then you were supposed to go out and find a job. That doesn't work anymore. We now need a job linkage program. Why? Because jobs are coming back from overseas. Something interesting happened. A few years ago, you remember all the corporations were taking their jobs overseas because that's where you could find cheap labor. Remember? Corporations were going to Asia. They could find cheap labor. The labor in this country was too expensive. Well, you know what happened when the corporations went overseas and found the cheap labor? The corporations found out that you get what you pay for. They had cheap labor. You know what they got? Cheap labor. And the labor doesn't have the skills to do the jobs. So those corporations are now turning around and they're coming back. And they're bringing those jobs back to this country. And we want to say, bring those jobs back to New York. And that is an opportunity for us. But you have to have the skills to do the job. And that is our sweet spot, and that is our opportunity. Today, there are 210,000 unfilled jobs in New York. Think about that, 210,000. Businesses looking for employees who can't find them because the employee doesn't have the skill to do that job. Our job training programs for the next generation have to reverse the equation. First, you find the employer, then you identify the job, you identify the skills you need for that job, and then you train an individual with those exact skills for those jobs. It's an apprenticeship program for the next generation. And train a person for that identified job. It will flip the paradigm that we now have, but we're going to fill those jobs and we're going to have a workforce that is prepared for the economy of tomorrow. Once you find those jobs have to pay a wage that supports a family. Borough President mentioned this. Senator Klein mentioned this. You have to have a wage that is livable. Right now you have a minimum wage law. There's a federal minimum wage law and a state minimum wage law. And right now the minimum wage is $14,600 per year, which means if you work full-time for the minimum wage, that's your annual salary, $14,600. Well, compare it to the costs that someone has to deal with in life. Cost of gasoline is $1,200. Cost of electricity, $1,300. Auto insurance, $1,400. Groceries, $6,500. Child care is $10,000 alone against the $14,000 salary. And the cost of housing is $15,000. Cost of housing is more than you'd make on a minimum wage. It just does not work. The numbers just do not add up. We're out of pace with the other states in our area. We propose raising the minimum wage to $8.75 an hour. It's the right thing to do. It's long overdue, and we want to do it this year. The other priority for us is education. And our program, in 2 words, is more and better. More learning time. U.S. Secretary of Education, the highest education official in the country, makes the point that this country, forget the state for a second, this country is falling behind because other countries just educate their children more than our country. They spend more time in the classroom. And more education, their students are doing better. our students are going to be competing with them. We all talk about the global economy. Well, then we have to be training our students, educating our students the same way other countries are. And that means more learning time. Well, how do you have more learning time? There are three options. You can extend the school day. Instead of 9 to 3, you're in the classroom longer. You extend the year. You don't have as long as summer vacation. By the way, why do we have off every summer? Because our educational calendar is done at a time when we had an agrarian society, and we needed the children to work the fields in the summer. So we had off the summer. That's where the schedule came from. What the other countries around the globe are saying is, no, we're going to educate during those summer months, and we're going to have an advantage. So one option is a longer year. Third option is a combination of both. Now, the concept is right. More learning time. I believe it is the way of the future. I believe this is a conversation we need to have as a state and as a country. It is also going to be difficult. Why? Because people plan their lives around school days, and if the school day goes from 9 to 3 to 9 to 5, that has all sorts of ramifications. You shorten the summer. You ruin people's summer vacation plans. It's a complicated issue. But it's a discussion that I want to have, even though it's not easy. Going back to the borough president, sometimes the governor is not easy. We need to educate our children. Oh, I'm not going to let you forget that, Ruben. I'm not going to let you forget that one. Sometimes it is tough, and this is a tough conversation. We have to talk about how do we educate our children more. What we want to do is this. We want to leave it to the school districts to decide how to educate their children, whether it's a longer day, a longer year, or a combination of both. There are 700 school districts in the state, and we'll leave it up to each school district. You tell us how you want to do it and if you want to do it. But as an incentive and as a promotion, if that school district is willing to educate the child more, the state will pay 100% of the cost of that education as an incentive to do it. Same is also true for more early education. All the scores, all the studies show the earlier you get a child in the classroom, the better. We should provide pre-K for all our children. It is the greatest single thing we can do for the next generation. More and better education in distressed communities. We've had for many, many years a conversation about schools in poorer communities versus schools in richer communities. And we've compared the schools in the richer community and the school in the poorer community on the assumption that they were doing the same thing, that they were apples and apples. They are not apples and apples. The school in the poorer community has much more work to do than the school in the richer community. Because the richer community, the wealthier community, has all sorts of supports that the school in the poorer district doesn't have. So to compare the two, in a poorer community, a school is not just a school. It is a nutrition center, it's a counseling center, it's an after-school program, it's a mentoring program. It has a lot of work that it has to do. Let's recognize this difference. And let's fund the schools in the poorer communities as what they are. They're social service centers, they're community support centers, and we'll call them community schools and invest in that education fully with all the support services. And we want to start a community schools program that does just that, that funds schools on a fair basis to provide those services. Higher education is everything, And that's why my hat's off to every person who was in Lehman College. This is what it's all about. We have the New York SUNY system, the higher education system across the state of New York that gives a great education at an affordable cost. We have the New York CUNY system. We've been investing in both over the past 2 years. More money for capital, more buildings, more maintenance, and I want to continue it this year for both SUNY and for CUNY. While education and economic development are the 1-2, there is more to New York, and New York is a community, and New York is a special community. And as the borough president was pointing out, you look around this room, you look around this school, you look around your classroom, you see what makes New York special. And that is the diversity of New York. It's one of the things that we had to deal with first. And our basic rule that we came up with to keep everyone happy and to make one out of this amalgamation was a zero tolerance for discrimination against anyone. Period. And that's what New York was all about. The stop and frisk policies that are now in place are policies that the police use that they suggest and records suggest have reduced the amount of criminal activity. But there's also a corollary to that. There have been about 50,000 arrests for marijuana possession, more than any other arrest from the stop and frisk. Of those arrests, 82% Black and Hispanic youth, 18% other, 69% under the age of 30 years old. So this is 50,000 arrests, young Black and brown teens, usually for small amounts of marijuana. Now, these arrests will stigmatize the youth, it'll criminalize them, it creates a permanent record, makes it harder to get a job, makes it harder to get an interview in the future. It's not fair, it's not right, it must end. The problem is, we have a law on the books that says small amounts of marijuana in public view is a crime. We want to change that and decriminalize small amounts of marijuana so it doesn't create a criminal record for people who are victims and lets them get on with their lives, and we want to do that this year. New York State is the equality capital of the nation, and we work at it every day, and we work at it every year, and we constantly are looking for barriers to equality or where injustice is allowed to exist and tackling those barriers. We did it 2 years ago when we said there was discrimination in not allowing people of the same sex, not allowing gay people to marry. You can't discriminate based on sexual orientation. You can't discriminate against love, and you shouldn't discriminate against marriage. New York passed a law called the Marriage Equality Law, saying people of the same sex could marry. New York passed that law. It resonated all across the nation. Other states noticed. We changed the dialogue, and we provided equality for millions and millions of people in this state, and we fostered the dialogue all across the nation. It showed, you should have applauded for that. We did the right thing by New Yorkers, and we were true to the pledge of New York and the ethic of New York. But it also showed how powerful New York's voice could be in a national debate. And it also showed me how many people look to New York and watch New York for guidance and for leadership. Well, there are other areas where there is still inequality that for many reasons we've been unwilling to see, unwilling to acknowledge, or unwilling to tackle. And we have more to do.
These two babies were born in the same hospital on the same day at the same time. They will both go home to loving families and good homes. They will attend good schools, get the same grades, and earn the same degree. They will enter the same profession, but their lives will be much different. One will earn, on average, $11,000 less per year and $500,000 less over a lifetime. The other is 32 times more likely to become a CEO or serve on a corporate board. One is 5 times more likely to be sexually harassed or become a victim of domestic violence, and more than twice as likely to be a victim of housing or lending discrimination. One is twice as likely to become a single parent living in poverty, and twice as likely to live out old age in poverty. Why? Because one is a girl. It's not right. It's not fair. It's time for a Women's Equality Act.
The truth is that society still discriminates against women. As hard as that reality may sound, that is the truth. So we propose a Women's Equality Act. This state was the birthplace of the women's rights movement, Seneca Falls. We made history once. We'll make history again. The Women's Equality Act has 10 points, shatters the glass ceilings with a real equal pay law, meaning you have to pay a woman the same price you pay a man for the same job. Zero tolerance. Zero tolerance for sexual harassment, strengthen employment lending discrimination laws, human trafficking laws, and family status discrimination, prevent landlords from denying housing to Section 8 because a woman is unmarried, stop housing discrimination for victims of domestic violence, stop pregnancy discrimination, protect victims of domestic violence by strengthening order protection laws, and protect a woman's right to choose. Another societal issue that plagues us that we took on the second day of the legislative session, and I believe is going to go down in the history books as one of the great, great accomplishments of this legislature, was the issue of gun violence. We saw in Newtown, Connecticut, the horrendous loss of life of young people. Webster, New York, which is outside of Rochester, upstate New York, Christmas Eve, this past Christmas Eve, someone set fire to a car in front of his house. The fireman came to put out the fire. He was in his top window with an assault weapon, shot and killed the firefighters. And he just set the fire as a magnet to attract the firefighters. But this is not just the past few weeks, my friends. This has been going on for decades and decades and decades. And given the politics of the situation, the government has been unable to come up with intelligent, common sense laws to control guns. So we've lost hundreds of people who we didn't have to. But we proposed a law, and we passed a law that is reasonable, that is balanced, that is measured, that respects hunters and sportsmen, but it ends the unnecessary risk of high-capacity assault rifles. It keeps guns from criminals and the mentally ill. It bans assault weapons. It closes the private sector loophole by requiring federal background checks for all people, enacts tougher penalties for illegal gun use and handguns, and what's called the Webster provision, which is, after the situation I just mentioned to you, mandatory life sentence for killing a first responder. That's the laws that this legislature passed. It is called the New York SAFE Act. While the other states are debating, while Washington is debating, your legislature stepped up to the plate and actually passed this law. This law will save lives. And last but not least, on top of everything, we have to respond to the crisis. Hurricane Sandy was October 29th, 2012. The first point after Hurricane Sandy is let's learn from what has happened. There is a fact that climate change is real, and it is undeniable. We now have a 100-year flood every 3 years. I've been governor for 2 years. I've dealt with 4 or 5 major weather, climate crises. My father was governor for 12 years, dealt with none. There is a change in the weather. It is inarguable that the sea is warmer, and the warmer sea is changing the weather pattern. So you're getting floods, you're getting tornadoes, you're getting aberrant weather patterns that didn't happen. So let's learn from this. It's not going to be the last time. There will be other storms, and there will be more damage. And when we are planning and rebuilding, let's take this opportunity to build back smarter, and let's challenge our government to do a better job than ever before. Many of these homes are in coastal areas. I would rather spend more money now and build them back intelligently and properly and what they call mitigate, rather than building them back every 3 years. That's our Recreate New York Smart Home program. There are some places that Mother Nature owns. And she may only visit every 3 or 4 years, but when she comes, she owns that parcel, and she wipes out that house. And we want to offer a buyout program to people who may choose just not to build back in those areas and go build back in other places. We have to harden our infrastructure. It can't be that every time there's a storm, the subway system floods and the tunnels flood. The MTA, with Acting Chairman Fernando Ferrer, did a fantastic job during this last storm, but we have to be ready. Give them a round of applause for the job they did. But they have to be ready. We have to harden our infrastructure, especially the subway system. We have to harden our airports, which flooded and which were closed for weeks. We have to harden our fuel delivery system. You remember all the chaos with the lines? That was all caused by a 1.5-day delay in the delivery of fuel. Caused weeks of havoc. Why? Because we have no backup system. We have no fuel reserve system. When those freighters can't come in, those tankers can't come in for one reason or another, it shuts down everything. We can't allow that to happen. We have to harden our utilities. Can't be every time the wind blows, a tree falls, takes down a wire, and we're in the dark for weeks. We need to redesign our power system. We have to have the best emergency response network in the country, because this is government's responsibility at its best, and the first responders have to be ready for the job. We also want to empower communities to rebuild on their own, providing them the financial assistance, but listening to their visions on how to rebuild, because they know better than we do. And we're going to be providing state grants to the affected communities of Hurricane Sandy so they can do their own reconstruction plans and they can build back smarter than ever before. The good news is we got $30 billion from the U.S. Congress for rebuilding after Hurricane Sandy. $30 billion is a lot of money, and we thank the President and we thank the Congress for making this available. That's the good news. And the best news is that we are New Yorkers. And we will end where we started. I was out there for Hurricane Sandy, and it was terrible and it was tragic, but there was a silver lining to the storm also, which is I saw New Yorkers come together in a way they hadn't come together in years. And you know, sometimes like in a family, you're very good at fighting amongst yourselves, but then something real happens. God forbid somebody gets sick, somebody dies, and that family comes together. Some ways this state is like that. And Hurricane Sandy was a real phenomenon. It created real harm for people, and our family came together. And I saw New Yorkers come together, all walks of life. Upstate people came down to help downstate people. All sorts of people came together just because we were New Yorkers. And that's what we remembered. We remember that what unites us is stronger than what divides us. And our commonalities are the key to our future and our success. And those commonalities is what makes this state special. And when we focus on who we are and what we are, and we put aside the petty differences, and we stop looking at skin color or sexual orientation or whether you're from upstate or downstate or you're rich or you're poor or you're gay or you're straight, we're New Yorkers. And we're one, and we're talented, and we're powerful, and we're smart, and we're educated, and when we are united, there is nothing that we can't do. So we're not just going to build back New York. We're going to build this state back better than ever before. And that's why it's New York Rising. We're going to build back from this hurricane and build the Empire State stronger than ever for you and your kids. Thank you, and God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program.